All right, let's talk about our spotlight games. So for the spotlight game this week, we've got a double feature. The first up is Urban Champion, came out in 1986 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And basically before Street Fighter 2 turned fighting games into like the arcade phenomenon they were, Nintendo took an early swing at the genre with Urban Champion. It was a scrappy little brawler that dropped players right into the city streets for this one-on-one beatdown. It's very reminiscent of on a blank River City Rampage, Urban Champion. It's one of the games that just it feels like when you see people playing a video game in a movie, like they're playing something like this. It's like the movie's idea of what video games are. Um, and yeah, this is just it's a very bare bones fighting game. It was developed by Nintendo R&D1. Urban Champion, it's one of the earliest attempts at a console fighting game. It's simple. It's almost charmingly simple. There's two nameless street toughs facing off on a single screen. You trade punches. You try to knock each other into an open manhole. You've got two attacks, basically a light punch and a heavy punch, and you've got a block button. That's all you need for this because you're just kinda going back and forth. It's a tug of war almost, and each fight escalates as you push your opponent further down the street, and eventually you get to the 3rd screen, which has the open manhole cover. Visually, Urban Champion, it has that unmistakable early NES charm. It's colorful, cartoonish. The looping background city is kind of cool. It's easy to see the roots of Nintendo's like pre-NES arcade lineup, particularly Punch Out here. But yeah, Urban Champion, it was never really a critical hit, even in '86, but because some people found it repetitive, but it's gained a bit of retro respect as this quirky artifact from Nintendo's experimental era. Long before Mario was throwing fireballs in Smash Brothers, this was Nintendo's idea of a street fight, and yeah, it's like I said, I think the perfect way to sum it up is when you see people playing video games in movies, they're playing something that looks like this.
Yeah, yeah, same thing in my notes. Game you would see someone play in a '90s sitcom. Uh,
Yep.
yeah. First fighting game by Nintendo. It was inspired by Game and Watch boxing, and
Mhm.
on its own as an NES game, not so good. And
Mhm.
we can do the whole, well, we can give credit for it being the first. And,
Mhm.
if you have nostalgia for this game, but if we're going to be critical about it, it's just not a really good game. NES isn't known for its fighting games. And if you do want a fighting game on
Yeah.
NES, the other game that we reviewed is better. And there's just better options on the system.
Yeah, it's
So,
more of a beat 'em up system than a straight up fighting game system. Those
yeah.
didn't really take off until Street Fighter on the Super Nintendo and arguably Mortal Kombat. Um, this is more of like Double Dragon, except without the story. You're just hitting each other. It
Yeah.
predates Double Dragon though by 3 years.
So there's ambition there, I'm sure, but but the idea that they would take like a Game and Watch game and make an NES game out of it, it's
Mhm,
obvious why something like that uh, could struggle. Yeah.
mhm.
So it's not a game that I would return to, and I would only recommend it if you really wanted to see like what was like the first fighting game that Nintendo attempted to make on a home console. So for me,
Mhm.
149. It's in the bottom 10 for me right now.
Wow, we have it in the same spot, even though that's not my bottom 10, but I put it at 149 as well because I would rather play this than NES Open Golf, but I would not I think this is worse than NES Tennis.
I
So, that's where I ranked it.
I did not look at
Block
your
of
ranking.
NES games.
Yeah, I didn't look at yours. That's coincidence. So
Yeah, it's just it's a block of NES games all in a row on my list right now. NES Tennis, now we got Urban Champion, Open Golf, and then Ice Climber is below Open Golf.
Yeah, I forget. I
So
think mine's like above or below Donkey Kong Junior Math or something. Uh,
okay.
yes, something like that.
I wonder where I have that ranked. It must be lower because I can't imagine I ranked that higher. But yep, it is lower. Donkey Kong Junior Math. Wait, oh no, this is Donkey Kong Junior. Oh, Donkey Kong Junior Math is in my bottom five. It's 165. Okay. Anyway, so moving along, we also reviewed another fighting game, the two NES fighting games on the service this week. Joy Mech Fight was not released in America, but it came out on the Famicom in 1993. It's a hidden gem from the very tail end of the NES era, a fighting game that pushed Nintendo's 8-bit hardware to its absolute limits. It released only in Japan, like I said. Joy Mech Fight is a wild, creative brawler that feels way ahead of its time. Developed by the Nintendo R&D1, the same team behind Metroid and Kid Icarus. Joy Mech Fight stars Sukapon, this goofy little pink robot comedian who's forced into battle when his creator's colleague goes rogue. It's very Mega Man. It's very Mega Man. Like this robot master had a colleague that went rogue, just like Mega Man had Dr. Light and then Dr. Wily went rogue. Um, and in both cases, the rogue guy builds an army of evil robots. So the story unfolds through these charming little cutscenes, giving it more narrative than almost any other fighter at the time. Gameplay wise, Joy Mech Fight it's they did the best they could. The NES couldn't handle large animated sprites, so each robot's body parts are drawn separately: the head, the arms, the legs, torso, and they're connected by invisible joints. The result is surprisingly fluid animation. Like you could still follow what was going on. And it's not only a clever technical workaround, it also gives the game a unique puppet-like style that totally stands out from other 8-bit fighters. So each robot, you've got your own special moves. You got 36 playable characters, which is a huge roster. uh, Joy Mech Fight, it offers an insane amount of variety for an NES game. I just wish that they had a translated version on the service like they keep not doing, because yeah, this is basically Mega Man meets Street Fighter with like a little dash of Kirby in there. And I like it. We got a fun fact here. Fun fact: Sokopan actually reappears in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a sprite and even as an assist trophy in that game. It's a little nod from Sakurai, who cited Joy Mech Fight as one of the inspirations for Smash. So, bottom line, Joy Mech Fight, one of the NES's most impressive late entries. It's quirky. It's not going to change your life. It's still an NES fighting game at the end of the day, but it's a good one. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, 1993 is pretty crazy. Cause like,
Mhm.
I was alive at that point. Like I was actually a kid while NES games were coming out, which feels real crazy to me. And it's a really good example of like we're gonna take out as much as possible to add in as much gameplay content as we can into an NES game. It almost feels like a like an experiment at the end of like an NES life cycle to say like look how much we can do on this hardware, because there are you start with 8 characters, but you can get up to 32 by completing the game. And
Mhm.
32, like overall, that's hundreds of sprites they have to make, even if a lot of them are just like being rendered different colors. I think that's a really like the whole game seemed really, really smart. Now,
Yeah, I
It
was really bummed. This is the first time we've played a Japanese only game where I was like, "Oh, I really wish this was translated." Like, I've gotta find I'm sure there's a ROM out there that has a fan translation. I gotta get it.
yeah, and it's not one that ranks too high for me, like, everything that we've brought up, including the
Mhm,
translation. For me, there's not a whole lot of replay, but man, it's a game that I respect a lot. It's a game that I've had my eye on since it was added to the service because I think, I'm not a mech guy, but I think mechs are cool. I think it's definitely more towards my style of a fighting game that I would want to play.
mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I think that it's really cool. I don't know whether they call it Joy. Some people call it Joy Mech Fight. Some people call it Joy Mecha Fight. I don't know.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot. There's just not a whole lot of information of really either of these games online initially. Like Urban Champion, I could only find reviews from the Virtual Console. Um, so yeah, I guess my simple review of it is that I think it's really cool. I put it at 128, which is still like in an area where yeah, I think it's a good game. Even though it ranks there, I think it's a really good game. How about you?
I put it down at 134, but even that I think is still in my B tier range. Maybe the lower end of B, it might be C tier, but it's among games like NES Pinball and Columns on the Genesis, which I really liked. And um, I don't know, it's right at that line where it starts to get to stuff that I'll probably never play again, but it's I don't know, I enjoyed it, and it just as a piece of history, I thought it was interesting to play for that, boot it up for, like, 10, 20 minutes and just take a look at where we came from, because it's a really cool I love the stadium environment and how that was on there, like, I don't remember every now and then I'll play a game where I'm like, my memory of the NES doesn't seem like it was capable of something like this. So, they really pushed it to the limit. It almost feels like those, Super FX chip games you wouldn't get until the late, end of the Super Nintendo, like when they had, like, Stunt Racer FX and, obviously Star Fox and stuff like that. It kinda reminded me of that.
What was the install base in Japan at the time? I guess just like in the late 80s, early 90s. I guess Japan was just like, give us more. Yeah, like Super Nintendo, Game Boy. Yeah, we'll still play NES games. Um,
Mhm. Whereas over here, the Super Nintendo had been out a year at that point or 2 years at that point. So, yeah, we were kinda past it.